Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mind Your Buffalo podcast. This is your host Ravikant, aka the Buffalo Intellectual. I usually open the show with like some kind of a copyright-free, royalty-free music that is there, but like YouTube keeps giving me these strikes, saying that oh, this video can't be monetized because you've used this kind of a song, and then I have to get into them. I have to appeal it. It's a whole thing. So I just thought I'll just like strum my own guitar and like do that for a bit, and maybe like when I have more time I'll probably try to record something nicer so it like doesn't just sound some kind of like couple of chords I've just hit together, but maybe I'll just do that. Maybe this will just not have a opening intro. Who cares, why are we talking about opening intro to a podcast? Our cities are falling apart. That's the big news. That's what we're talking about. Stuff is just going off the rails. There's all kinds of, complete anarchy going on. Delhi, which till a couple of weeks ago was just like burning up, like um, this news coming out 50 plus degrees Celsius temperatures, unprecedented heat wave. Like there's some sources which are speculating on unofficial basis that like over 500 and 600 people have died. And now it's the opposite situation because monsoons have come into the city, and the whole city is under flood situation. um, it's completely off the track. It's completely bizarre. All manners of things are going on, and it's not just like the city of Delhi. It's just almost everywhere. Like I think some ridiculous piece of news I saw. Some five bridges have collapsed. Six bridges have collapsed every other day. Every few weeks, you see like some kind of a railway disaster happening. You see like trains are falling off the tracks, and even when trains are actually not just like upending and falling apart, like the structure, the system's capacity has gone. There are too many people, too few trains. Everything is overcrowded. Passengers in air conditioned AC booths, AC berths are AC coaches are complaining that all kinds of people are getting on the train because there's too many people who can't travel. There's not enough seats. Uh, the airway airline thing is itself a disaster. Delhi, Jabalpur, Rajkot, like three airports in the last few days, weeks have had like structural damage. Roof has started caving in. There is stuff leaking across the board. Um, and this is not counting the overall delays in generally how the airlines are conducting every 2 3 weeks. There's a small piece of news in the Indian Express or something like that which will talk about, oh, major airline disaster just averted, like one flight is just getting off, the other one is just coming in, or there's some confusion. Like everything is running hand to mouth. Okay, everything just feels that it's about to fall apart. Okay. I've already done like the last episode on the education system, how it's all completely falling apart. Three or four major national exams have been postponed, report, like everything is happening simultaneously. The city civic infrastructure is falling apart, railways, airlines, um, bridges, exams, and public policy, environmental policy. Everything is just like completely just crumbling down, and it's hard not to feel like I tweeted this out. Like it's like early stage failed state vibes which are getting. And I just remember like when I started this podcast about a year and a half ago, and that's how long it has been. It's been over a year and a half I've been doing this podcast. And I think it was a second episode, right? It was about, and I was just listening to it, like because I was like, am I going to repeat the same things I've already said this before? And then I realized that, like, in that episode, I was just saying, like, it's almost like I'm predicting where we are right now. Because if you go back and that period in January 2023, like there's like everybody was talking. I made this point about how everybody till last year, or even, was talking about these grand things, and this ideology, that idea, like everyone's talking like it's business fucking usual. Okay, like nobody is understanding that fundamentally, under our feet, the base, the infrastructure, the foundation upon which we stand has just shaken. It's collapsing, right? These are systems. Like, you have to nurture systems, you have to maintain them, you have to grow them, you have to strengthen them. And if you don't do that, then they'll start collapsing. And you, by the time you notice, by the time things start going off the rails and crumbling, it's too late to fix them. So the time to fix some of these problems was actually 3 4 5 years ago. And here's the thing, I won't entirely just blame, oh, BJP is like this. It's not just the BJP, because the if you really think about the section of society which has truly brought us to this absolute dead end, okay, this absolute precipice, the absolute edge beyond which there is like impending collapse. That section of society is not Congress, BJP, it's not political party oriented. It is this patli parat, this layer, this cohort of incredibly educated urban elite wealthy savarnas. Like I have, that's the point I was making even back then. Like, if you look at like a country like the US, like they have the baby boomer generation. And what a monster generation that was. They benefited from the post Second World War boom. And like, their parents had fought the war, they didn't fight the war, they were born to parents who would come back from the war, and real wages were rising, they could buy property for very cheap. And that generation got very wealthy. And by the time 80s and 90s hit, and the economic stagnation started, and then eventually the collapse started, um, they were like, the boomers are really wealthy, and they're a very selfish generation, they're very narcissistic, very self-involved. In the context of India, it is the millennials, it is my generation. We are truly monsters. Like, especially the intergenerationally educated, wealthy Savarnas, like, they have benefited with no true talent of their own. Like, I was just seeing this, somebody sent me this reel of like, people keep sending these reels. Someone was like, so this girl, this woman, she's like, I'm in my 30s and I don't fear getting old because I'm accepting myself. It's okay to not adult, it's okay to be a child. First of all, when the fuck has this generation, our generation, ever adulted? Okay, this is something that people don't understand. My generation, the millennials, people in their 30s and 40s, early 40s, truly one of the most spoiled generations ever. This is a generation which, like, so here's the thing, even if you are Brahmin, upper caste, educated, your parents who were living in their 70s, in the 1970s, 1980s, they still lived hard, frugal lives because the times were just harder. Everything was just more difficult, was scarce. There are about 700 800 families across India which ran India. Like, you went to Delhi, there was some of these really old families, Doon School, Mayo, and all, Stephens. Like, their fathers are ambassador, uncles are judges. Like, these 700 800 families. After that, even if you're upper caste, like, your life was not easy. Even if you had property, even if you had a flat, like, it was a time of scarcity. And if you're a Bahujan, if you're like, you're coming from a marginalized caste background, if you're SC/ST, OBC, it was much much more difficult. You go back and see the cinema of the 1970s, especially, like, there's mass unemployment. हजारों लोग unemployed है, like लाखों लोग unemployed है. Everybody doesn't have a job. Everybody is, either you had the Amitabh Bachchan films in Bollywood where like young people are angry, or you had like the Amol Palekar films, which is like, you develop like a surreal sense of humor. Like, hey, we're fucked up. There's nothing to be done. It was a difficult time period. My generation, my era, all the people in their 30s and 40s now, they have never been like that. ये जो है ना, this whole thing, I don't want to adult. Shut the fuck up. Please adult. Please do it. Nobody in my generation has actually adulted. Okay, like you'll go into a tech job, IT job, and then they're like, oh bapre itna stress, now I need to go to the pub, I need to drink, I need to de-stress, I need to take a sabbatical. Boss, क्या तुम्हारे माँ बाप के generation में stress नहीं था क्या? Like what is this, like this thing? Like I'm saying this in a humorous way, it's unpopular opinion, I know I'll get a lot of pushback, because here's the thing, it's a generation of grown up babies who refuse to accept that they are truly soft and pampered. Okay, they refuse to do it. उनसे आप पूछोगे मेरे जनरेशन में, you go to anybody is like, elite urban, wealthy savarna, you go and ask anybody, they will say that their parents never faced as like, parents have no idea how much I am suffering, and then they look at the younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha people, and they're like, "You guys don't know how good you are." What a truly uncle, auntie, vicious generation of mine. And the reason why I'm making this point is because this is the generation which completely narcissistically self-served itself. Truly, totally. Like they benefited from some changes in the market economy. So competitive exams became a route to, engineering, MBA. There was a high salary, comparatively low fees. If you had some amount of money, some intergenerational advantages, you could very easily go from a low income lifestyle to like a wealthy lifestyle in a top metropolitan city within 4 or 5 years. By your mid 20s, you could have that lifestyle, and lakhs and crores of people, most of them Savarna, but also SCs and STs and OBCs, a small section, but a large section of these Savarnas truly benefited from this. They all entered like these jobs in, like, Bangalore and Gurgaon and parts of Bombay. All of this, this is built on this wave which emerged in the early 2000s. And this section, all they did was they made so much wealth for themselves and never asked any questions about what they were participating in. This is a section which will say, I pay my tax, I follow the rules, and look at all these other, like, sadak pe, there is chaos and traffic police is there, and there are no laws in India, there are no rules in India. Buddy, like the housing colony that you're in, this gated community that you're so proud of hiding behind, like where did the land come from? Who's the real estate developer? That real estate developer which built that housing complex, are you sure he's the cleanest, most professional, no shady deal person? Do you know anything about that? Or what about the upkeep of your entire gated community or your office complex? The staff who come, who clean, who maintain, are they employees? Are they contracted out labor? Who's in charge of, are they getting paid fair wages? Are they not being exploited? Are you sure about all of these things? But that's not important. See, that's the thing. This cohort feels that thinking like this is not their job. It's too much. I am not supposed to do that. Oh, I am such a busy executive. I am such a busy job. Man, there's so much stress in my life. I barely get up in the morning. I barely able to feed myself and reach work. Can't adult so hard. Wah, wah, wah. And like I go to the work and I work there for 12 hours and then I come home. All I can do is get drunk and text the wrong people and like make bad choices in my life. Why? Now you're supposed to make me also think about whether, like, the sanitation workers and the watchmen in my housing complex and my office complex, are they not being exploited? Too much. Yeah, Allah, I can't do this. Yeah, bacha lo mujhe. This is exactly the kind of spoiled children, like they've grown up but they're fucking children in their head. They're soft, they have wealth, they are the most boring, unimaginative people ever, and they have directly and indirectly been part of large amounts of businesses, corporations, policy, directly and indirectly, which has led us into this position. Politicians you can blame, yes, but politicians are one piece of the puzzle. Understand this one thing always: a politician has one skill and one skill only, which is to win an election. They know that. So, whatever policy impulse that they have comes from this idea of what is an election winnability, right? So, even like if you see Modi Sarkar, one of their core promises is the Awas Yojana, building housing or giving ration, or in Madhya Pradesh, the BJP government there. Gave the Ladli Behna scheme, which they have, by the way, just a couple of days ago imported to Maharashtra, because they're struggling in Maharashtra and Maharashtra elections are coming very soon. So they're like, okay, it seems like a scheme which influences voters. It's basically giving a lot of stuff to women on state funding. So politicians have an instinctive impulse of figuring out what they can give. Their main skill is, okay, if I have 100 rupees, I can't solve all of the world's problems with those 100 rupees. But which are the things that I can do in this 100 rupees which will get me the maximum amount of votes? Because people are just in such scarce, precarious, vulnerable environment that something is better than nothing. So they will take that ration, they will take that benefit, they'll take that scheme, they'll take that farm loan waiver, and they'll vote for you, right? So that's what that is. But when you create a government, a state government or a national government, you also have like this mandate and a job. Part of the job is to have like long term policy vision. Part of the job is to try, and the politician finds himself or herself in that role where they're also responsible now for putting things into motion which will take 15, 20, 30 years to kind of mature, right? That's not what the politician is really equipped for. Okay, some politicians have a natural knack and they have a vision and everything. Most of these guys don't. They're very regionally located, they're very locally rooted. Their skill primarily is, okay, in my constituency, in my kshetra, in my region, who are the important figures, how do I manage these important opinion leaders, community leaders, who's rising, who's falling. They're ear to the ground to that kind of stuff. They're not very clued into what should be the sustainability policy for the city of Gurgaon, for instance. Like their interest is, okay, Gurgaon, I want to develop as an IT hub, but like how do you exactly develop it? Who do you bring in? Which companies come in? How do you incentivize a Amazon or a Wipro or somebody to come and set up a campus or an office or something like that? Like how do you like how do you do that? What is the nitty gritties of operationalizing that? And then you realize that's not the politicians doing it. It's a lot of people in the middle, it's a lot of intermediaries, it is a lot of lobbying, B2B outreach, a lot of stuff like that which is going on. And those spaces are majorly manned by this exact cohort that I was talking to you about. like like smart cities is one of my favorite examples for this. Smart cities mission, I've talked about this, I've tweeted about this. It's a scam, it's an actual scam. What they did was, it's very interesting. Like and I'll tie this back to what breaks our cities. If you look at the smart cities mission, for instance, when Modi just comes to power in 2014, 2015, and he says that, okay, I want to make Indian cities future ready and I want to make them smart, like smart cities mission. Like, I'm not a Modi fan. Like, okay, I don't like ideologically, I think I've made it very clear, I'm not a fan of this guy or that regime or that party or that whole thing. But when they come and say urban renewal, we want to make smart cities, I can't disagree with that, because does India need a strong visionary urban policy? Yes, Is there need to make our cities quote unquote future ready? Yes, right. So when you announce something like smart cities mission, immediately for me it doesn't pass the smell test. Like, you smell, you're like, कुछ अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है. Like immediately it doesn't, because the I hear the word smart and city, and in my head I'm like, this is some technocratic nonsense, some tech bro type person. But okay, like let's see what will happen, right? And here's what happened. They didn't have a plan basically. Okay, now you announce something like that big and you don't give out the details, right? There can be two reasons for it. Either that means you're absolutely inefficient and you're like a child, you got an idea and you jump and you announce it, which could also be the case. Or two, which I think is more likely, you leave the specifics vague for a reason. Because when you leave it vague, it means you can fill in the details later as the whole thing starts playing out, and you figure out what are the best ways to benefit from this. So you leave it open for that. And I think that's what happened here. I think a few years after that, there was hardly any data in the public domain about what constitutes making a city smart, what will happen, how will the funding come. There's very little data. I think even now there is very little, but at least it started putting it out in the last 5 years. But till about 2016, 17, 18, there's hardly anything there. So there was this smart cities. Every smart city, they appointed a smart city CEO or whatever. So India had about 100 smart cities that announced. So there were 100 CEOs. There was a meeting of all of these people in New Delhi. Okay, and I had gone for that. I think I was the only academic in that room, because like I saw it, I went for it. I wanted to study what was going on. I wanted to see like all of these people, like what are they. Uh, I wanted to understand what this is. Like, it was a research thing for me. So I went to Delhi, and I think the event was in the Lalit Hotel, if I in Connaught Place, if I'm not wrong. And when I went there, it was very interesting, because when I went into the hotel lobby, it's a five-star hotel. When I went into the lobby, I was greeted with, like, those job fair type of stalls, of all these tech companies, HP and all of that. And I'm like, why are these tech companies putting up stalls here? Everybody has a brochure and thing of that nature. That didn't make sense to me, because I thought it would have more of a government event kind of a vibe, but it was a very campus placement tech sort of a vibe. And then I go into the banquet hall where these events are happening, and I see on stage, like, one of these tech companies, their representative is giving this presentation, a very animated, um, sharp, glitzy, fancy video, and it had all these buzzwords, as sustainability, future, tech. I said, they're like, these words are just leaping at you. And, animation is city skyscrapers building up, and it looked so cringe technocratic that, like, I just started laughing. I remember I was laughing. Like, everybody else was just kind of in the audience, was just kind of bored. But like for me, I was like, oh, who did this? Like, what is this? Like, you hired, like, what, first year, second year design and engineering students to, like, make some matrixy futuristic kind of a, fantasy animation. What is this? So I was watching that, and then I realized, oh, I finally get, or beginning to get, what this is. Because they did not define what exactly quote unquote smart cities is, or what needs to be done to make a city smart, it it opened the door for a lot of tech companies to enter the room, like all the HP, Wipro, etc., 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 who came in and said, by the way, you want to make the city smart, but you don't really know what to do. We know what to do, because we are a smart company, we are a tech company. So we will create customized products for you. We'll create like a dashboard where all these informations will come, all of those kind of things. Um, so my point is, who's who's making those business pitches, who's part of those projects, who's doing this, कौन कर रहा है ये कोई ऐसे यूपी बिहार एमपी कर्नाटका का कोई लंपन संघी पॉलिटिशियन नहीं कर रहा है. These are educated technical elites. These are MBA types. These are people whose kids go to, these Jindal and Ashoka type of Sonipat colleges, and who are going into, who are studying public policy as a major, and then they're going and working for ORF, and then they're saying that we need to do this. This is that cohort of people. Let's be very clear what this is. And I have no issue with it. Like, see, I have no moral objection to this. I'm not a 20-year-old who has just started, like, reading Marxist literature and calls him or her, like, comrade. I've been through that. I've done that timeline. I teach people like that. I get it. If you want to be a scumbag, that's fine. You want to be a tech company who wants to, like, feed off the rotting carcass of this nation, good. I am not going to morally judge you. Go make the wealth, do it, earn money, do whatever. But then don't complain when your cities start falling apart, when you live in a urban center where there are 17 microbreweries in your 5 kilometer radius, but there are not enough storm drainages, there are not enough public parks, there are not enough walking pathways, there's not enough civic public infrastructure, people are getting desperate. When funding for public works is cut, when all of those things start happening, when the environmental policy starts going down the road, you start prioritizing roads and flyovers over natural cover. There's no vision of how to grow our cities, how to make our cities ready for the next 50 years. We're already overcrowded. Our cities are running out of water. They're becoming heat islands. But uske andar mein, you are building, like, these office complexes with glass and steel. There is no thinking through. Only your LinkedIn or some PR will say, oh, you're into sustainability, zero carbon footprint, and all that. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Who is that cohort which has allowed this to happen on their watch? Right? And the problem is, you can't talk to people in my generation, my cohort, because they'll be like, what could I do? Like, they can't do anything individually, and they refuse to accept any collective responsibility. Right? I get it. Like, one person in one company or one thing can't change anything, but as a collective, who do I blame? Who is responsible for, this real estate mafia, the coaching classes mafia? Who is running all these? Who are all these MBAs who are running these IB schools and international admission policies and admission counseling and all of those things? Who is doing all of this here? कौन लोग कर रहा है ये तो these are, like, I know everybody likes to blame, politicians are bad. Politicians are not doing this. Understand this very carefully. These are people whose livelihood is very tied into the way system is running, and the way system is running is, you make cities, wealth systems, all of those things for maybe 1 or 2% of the population, maximum 5-10% of the population, nothing beyond that. And the politician, BJP, Congress, SP, BSP, whoever, they are supposed to magically come and change all of this. You know how to change all of this? You have to think in a holistic way. You have to make things in institutions more representative. You have to increase public sector spending. And then they're like, oh yeah, he's talking about public sector spending. We saw what happened before 1990. Yeah, that was bad. That was pretty bad. Public sector spending doesn't mean it has to be like that. It was a terrible way of doing it. India, before the economic reforms of the 90s, was run, I have mentioned this, I was run by 700-800 families. Rajiv Gandhi's cabinet in the 1980s was called the Doon School cabinet, because there's so many people from Doon School who were coming here. Doon School itself, by the way, for those of you who don't know, was established by this Bengali upper caste lawyer who went to UK in 1890s to study in Eton and one of these, big fancy English public schools. There, the word public school means something else. It doesn't mean open to it. There in UK, because education was only limited to, like, the royalty. So, like, to open it to other elites, they called it public school. So Eton, Harrow, these are like old, um, hundreds of years old. These old schools, and some of the super wealthy people go there, and those are the people who enter the politics, end up becoming prime ministers and things like that. So this Bengali lawyer went to the UK in the 1890s, saw that, was so charmed. He was like, "Hamare India mein I also want this. This is factory of creating super elites who run the country." And he was actually so dear to the British, he served them so well that they allowed him to do that. So he goes to Dehra Doon and creates a Doon school. The Doon school is literally an attempt to, and they proudly say it. I'm not saying this. You go to the Doon school website, they are proudly saying their history, how it got created, and so on. It's not hidden. They're proud of this. And they've created this, and everybody from the Nehru Gandhis, all of them went there. Like, Rajiv Gandhi went and studied there. I think Rahul Gandhi also went and studied there. Um, all these, like, political elites across the board, they all went and studied there. So till the 1990s, like, you went to Doon school or Mayo or these super elite schools, and then you went to Delhi and you went to St. Stephen's or something like that, and and then you immediately entered the corridors of power. You were in the policy decision planning commission, god knows whatever. And these were the people who ultimately the public system ended up reporting to. So no wonder it was a terrible system. It kind of really created a lot of what's called the license raj, gate kept spaces, and all of that. I get it. I get all of that. I'm not defending any of it, but there has to be a way of creating capacity building. Like India, in India, everybody keeps looking to China has a lot of problems in terms of how they deal with dissent, how they deal with their population, but China has also sort of managed very well to create sort of for a large section of their population opportunities by huge public expenditure. Singapore is another example of this, where you can see that the state has committed itself to provide huge, they've committed huge resources to provide all its citizens a dignified quality life. Are these the best, most democratic or freedom of speech societies? No, not even close. Because somebody will be like, now some first year from some college will be like, actually the GDP, and this is micro, Singapore did that according to this report. Listen, just stop, just shut up, don't flex, okay? I'm not interested. Like, yeah, you, what do you want? You are more intelligent. I'm telling you, you're more intelligent. I have no interest in debating policy bros or history bros or economic bros. I have studied enough. I have worked enough. I have traveled enough. I have done enough work to know what I'm talking about. And here's the other thing: if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I am not hung up on that. But this is how I see the world as of today in 2024. And one of the key elements of that is that you need to increase opportunities in education. You need to create more quality employable graduates and postgraduates. You need to be able to create more jobs of that, and you need to create those jobs locally. It doesn't help if the only jobs which will give you, like, 1 lakh rupees a month or above are located in the 5 top metro cities or the 3 top metro cities. It creates over concentration of populations. We need to kind of have a strategy of how to make our smaller towns in regional areas, the less developed states, where we could keep the population basic. Because this is, I know, and this is like a personal thing. Like, if you come from like if I am working, if I'm a young professional and I'm working in, let's say, Delhi or Bangalore, I want to earn, let's say, 70, 80,000 rupees. If you give me a job which gives me 50,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees in my hometown in Chhattisgarh or in Odisha, if where I'm from, I'm not from, I'm just going by example. Like if I am from Odisha, let's say, and I get a job, in a town which is 300 kilometers from my village or town, right? So that's like 4 5 hours of a bus journey. Even if the pay is 40 45,000 rupees, I'll take it, as opposed to going to a city like Bangalore and earning 80,000 rupees, because the cost of living will also be that higher. And whatever Bangalore is giving you in your life, why can't your small town give you that? Why can't Rajkot give you that in Gujarat? Why can't Jodhpur give you that in Rajasthan? Why can't Jalandhar give you that in Punjab? Why can't Dankuni or give you that in Bengal? Like if you have that, if you have those kind of opportunities, like it would greatly ease the internal migration pressure on some of the big cities, because that's the other thing people have to realize. All our giant cities are slum cities. Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, you name it, Ahmedabad, these are giant slum cities. Huge, like half or more than half of the population lives in slums or low income housing, because that's what happens when you intensify economic distress, and the only places where some work is available, you have to go to these cities halfway across the country and live like an animal. So like Bihar and eastern UP, there's you can't stay there, and often the idea of economic improvement is like, I remember seeing this documentary many years ago about this Bihari labor working in Surat, if I'm not mistaken, Surat, or I think it was Surat. And this guy is like, look, nobody wants to come 1500 kilometers away from their home to work in a factory for 12 hours a day for like bloody like 15,000 rupees a month. If I am here, it's not because somebody's put a gun on my head. I'm here because this is actually my idea of an improvement of what my other life was. Like it's much worse back home. If I could make 15,000 rupees back home, why the hell would I come here? I just can't. There is nothing there. So that has already told you the system has collapsed in huge parts of the country, and it collapsed decades ago. And there is no conversation in that. And the generation, the cohort which got educated in engineering, MBA, all of these things have no vision for this. They are not prepared for it, they were not trained for it, they don't have it intrinsically, and they have not worked towards it in their corporate career, in their professional career, in their wealth making career. My generation in the last 20 years has shown no aptitude for a larger civic vision. All they want to do is live in their dumb little like housing colonies, and they're obsessed with cafes, they're obsessed with microbreweries, and buying an SUV and driving off on the weekend. 15 साल से कर रहे हो ये, तुम बोर नहीं हुए हो? This is it. There is no other vision. And actually, the worst archetype of people is who are from this cohort who do all of this, but they think they're a little different. So what they'll do is like, like this 40-year-old uncle, like I'm almost 40, I'm 38. Like this, I've seen this. Like 40 45-year-old uncle will suddenly become a biker because he's so different, no? वो ऐसे ऐसे संडे सुबह को ऐसे 25,000 rupee Royal Enfield biking jacket वैकेट पहन के on his bike, he will drive 80 kilometers out of the city to have one maska or chai or something. What nonsense is this? Right, what is going on? Like or like this uncle is like 50 years old, and he has a teenage daughter or a teenage son, and they are in their late teens and early 2000s, and they want to create like performance art gallery, and they are doing that because everybody thinks it's so different. That's a vision. यही इतना सा ही छोटा narrow, sorry to use the word tatti vision है. It is so boring. It is so one dimensional. It has no depth. It has no nuance. It has absolute garbage. फिर दिन भर रोएंगे कि oh my god, this city is ruined. This city is ruined. अब लग रहा है ना, क्योंकि तुम्हारे घर में AC is not good enough now. इफ यू आर लिविंग इन दिल्ली एनसीआर नोएडा, लाइक वो 50 डिग्री टेम्परेचर होना, तुम्हारे एसी फट रहे हैं. अब यू आर सेइंग ओ माय गॉड व्हाट हैज हैपेंड. You're worried because Bangalore gets flooded. It was a city with lakes, you covered it up with concrete, nobody fucking said a word because you're happy, like going to Kaban Park and doing your little drama theater whatever. You're doing your whole tree hugger act. You did that, and now because concretization and there's no groundwater seepage, and every time it rains, it fucking floods it up. And now you're like, oh shit, they ruined our city. Dude, just because you shared like some 5 Instagram stories on the Save RA Forest or Save Hasdev doesn't mean that you're not complicit. It's not one thing. Your entire wealth, life, your operations, your entire company, entire sector is based on the exact principle of creating the kind of world that we live in. That's where we are. This is why things are falling apart. जाके देखो, who are the companies who have been contracted to build these airports and bridges which are falling apart, and then follow the money. Like you'll be like, oh, this was some builder who's close to Nitish Kumar's party or BJP or whatever. Great, great. What did it do with that wealth? Where did that wealth get reinvested? You follow that chain of line a little bit. Like some builder makes like some infrastructure, like a bridge, an overpass, or an airport, or something which falls apart or leaks or whatever. So, like, go and see their wealth. What have they done with it? If you follow that route down the line, they would have built an IB school, they would have built a college, they would have built a housing colony. उसमें तुम रह रहे हो, या somebody you lives there. You're directly connected, 1 or 2 degrees of separation. What are you talking about? This is a generation cohort which doesn't even forget taking accountability. They fall from the sky if you tell them that, like, you are the reasons why we are here. You don't think of your city, like all of this, like abhi to fir bhi kam ho gaya. I'm so glad that whole, like, a couple of years ago there was this whole thing, like, Bombay versus Delhi, Bombay versus Delhi, which city is important? My God, that inane, mind numbing shit. I'm so glad that has died out, because this whole Bombay versus Delhi is basically neither of you fucks represent either Bombay or Delhi, because, like I said earlier in this episode, both are slum cities. Your definition of what Bombay versus city is, oh, in Bombay we do local train, in Delhi we do we have this and we have that, and like Bombay food is this and Delhi food is that. No, you are like literally 2 to 3% of the cities. You're obsessed with your malls and your shopping complexes and your curated little bookstores or comedy stores or theater stores or whatever, and like you think you have culture and you think you're nuanced and you think you're deep because you write poetry slam or something like that. You truly don't understand what a boring, narcissistic, self-absorbed, monstrous cohort this is. You truly don't get it. And if there is a crisis today of urban infrastructure falling apart, of everything falling apart, this is where it is the exact kind of person who will go on Twitter and be like, you see, like, let's say the NEET exam. I was seeing this. It was so disgusting. Like, let's say the NEET exam and all of these exam crisis was happening, and they'll go tweet, these are the people who voted for BJP, so they deserve this. Fuck you. What is wrong with you? Like in Delhi now, there's a flooding again. I was seeing the same thing. People have voted for Delhi, Lok Sabha. They keep voting for BJP. This time also they won 7. Last time also, so they keep doing that. So they keep sending. So they deserve this. Who are you to say this? What have you done? Like I said, you live in houses, you work in offices, जिसका very land is built on that, जो तुम्हारे घर में आके तुम्हारा बाथरूम साफ करता है, कपड़ा साफ करता है, घर के अंदर साफ सफाई करता है, every who maintains your building, who do your security, who stand guard on your ATMs, who drive your cars, all of those fucking people are under, like, contract labor. They are not getting paid enough. You're directly involved in that. और फिर तुम उसको ब्लेम कर रहे हो बिकॉज दे आर गेटिंग लाइक सम चिंदी, लाइक लाइक little trickle down policies which are designed by politicians because they need the vote. Politician needs the vote. Politician is more involved in their life than you are. Politician needs a vote. Like, so they're more committed. In a way, they are more committed to the community out of their whatever self interest than you are. And you are like, oh नहीं नहीं, तुमने वोट किया ना, अभी बैंगलोर में बाढ़ आया है, या अभी बॉम्बे में बाढ़ आया है, अभी सफर करो, दिस इज, यू डिजर्व this kind of like mentality, like everybody else deserves it but me, everybody else needs to be punished excepting me, everybody else must take accountability excepting me. This is why we are in this position. This monstrous cohort has created, like, I was mentioning earlier in the episode, like my earlier episode, it's a second episode or first episode, I don't remember. uh, like, Americans have the boomers, and I call the millennials in India as the doomers. Like, literally, we have created doom. This is a generation which is supposed to take India by the year 2020 to developed nation status. We have actually done the opposite. We have doomed this society. And I'll tell you what will happen now. From this point, I'm beginning to now see tweets. I follow, that's how I got the elections right. I've said this before. Uh, I follow discourse very closely. I follow how people things get talked about by a large variety of people, and I'm beginning to see these the posts on Twitter, and I'm telling you, I had predicted this also. Now there will be a great exodus. Not a single one of these doomer, millennial, late 30s, early 40s, late 40s cohort, which benefited from these economic and educational policies of the early 2000s, not a single one of them want to raise their child in India. They're all trying to send their child abroad. There's a mass exodus happening. There's a huge pipeline. All of these Sonipat colleges, Ivy League colleges, private liberal arts colleges, IB school students, they're all gearing up to go abroad. There are agencies, there are placement agencies. I made some posts about it. I was talking about it in the previous episode also, who literally try to place your dumb, mediocre child abroad, through curated counseling and all that. Like, they're all leaving India. They're leaving India. They've sucked this doomer cohort, this doomer generation, my cohort. They've sucked India dry. They've taken everything that was there to be taken, and now they're going to go abroad, and they're going to run away, and they're going to come like once a year, like in Diwali or something. Or maybe they won't even do that. They'll sit in Dubai and they'll do like, Diwali Bollywood nostalgia night. They'll play Chaya Chaya, and they'll be like, yeah, yaar misale, all chale bao. And then everybody will like shake their heads and be like, oh, Shahrukh, what an era. And then they'll tut, they'll be like, what a tragedy. India used to be so good and all. ये लोग भाग के जाएंगे, उस टाइम भी accountability they won't take. That time also they will be like, everybody else is to blame. India was good, we were growing, these politicians ruined it, people who voted for the wrong people, what an era. They'll not take any accountability. This is the thing of that. But like, there's some, like, I may be sounding angry or whatever, but actually I find this very funny. Like, this cohort of people, like, just their absolute shamelessness is now something that I find humorous. Like, I find funny. I find it gives me life. So, on that note, I'll probably wrap up this episode. Be prepared in the next couple of weeks, and the monsoons have come. Now, Chennai will flood, Bangalore will flood. We are waiting the obligatory annual Bombay flooding that will happen. So there'll be next few weeks will be about the water crisis. One of our mountainous states will collapse almost every year, alternately. Sometimes it's Himachal, sometimes last year it was Himachal, a year before that it was Uttarakhand, even Uttarakhand right now. Like every year, Uttarakhand, Himachal, like they have massive flash flood type situations because these states have not been prepared to handle. Anyways, they're precarious. Mountain states are anyways precarious, but it'll get worse. So that'll happen. Odisha may get like a cyclone or two. Like this will happen like clockwork. It will just go on, and then by after the monsoon is retreating, smog will come to Delhi. Again, they will write things like, "Oh, farmers in Punjab are burning their, whatever crop and all that, and that's why this smog." Then winter will come, and then in Delhi, like homeless people will freeze to death, and people will write outrage tweets and things like that. This will just go on and on, right? It's now at this point a joke. We just like deal with it, and it'll get worse. It'll get worse. I hope I'm wrong, but at some point there'll be a major airline disaster because the way things are going, they're really not looking into it. Airline standard civil aviation collapse has been an ongoing slow burn story for the last year and a half. That clown from Madhya Pradesh, Scindia, Jyotiraditya Scindia, who was in Congress and then joined over to the BJP, and they made him the civil aviation minister, one of the worst civil aviation ministers in India. Like there was a situation where all these planes had all these issues. Planes have issues, airports are collapsing. Last year in the winter, planes, like there were these crazy scenes coming out of airports where passengers were waiting for 15, 17, 18 hours. Don't worry, that will happen again as soon as we hit winter again, because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed again for those 2 3 weeks in December, January. Flights will come to a halt. There'll be like 15-hour delays. People will be fighting Indigo crew in the airports. Angry tweets will happen. All of those things will again, nothing will change. Uh, People will put out pictures of like 10,000 people on a railway platform somewhere. Some kids might, like kids, young people who are appearing for competitive exams, they might burn a bus or two, and then somebody will be like, "Oh, this is so bad, why are they burning buses?" And like, it'll just go on and on. And then some people will go to a microbrewery and they'll be like, "I want an IPA. Can I have a taste of your stout?" You know, and then over that IPA, the stout, and in the music in these places is really loud. That's the other thing. It's something which is which is the biggest, like nothing is a bigger proof of how tacky this cohort is. Like they think they're the coolest people because they'll dress nice and summery and go to like these micro breweries, high ceiling, garden, greenery here and there, brick wall layout, and like they'll have like, "Oh, I'm an IPA aficionado" or something like that, and like some food platter will come, and like everybody's like, everybody thinks that they're young and hot, and they're just nodding their head and all, but the music is so loud that you can't even hear your own thoughts and you can't have a conversation. So all of these places where like two or three people go and the bill comes for 6,000, 7,000 rupees, places which are that expensive and that premium can't even like are not even secure enough in their offering that they turn the music down. No, everybody, like if you go to these places and say, "Can you turn the music low?" They look at you like you just ask them like, "Can you stop serving food?" They look at you like that, like, what are you, like an idiot? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So that's how tacky this cohort is. Like, thus Salse, they're sitting in bars and pubs where like the music is blowing their fucking brains out, and nobody has figured out that like actually this is not good. This is actually not an enjoyable experience because they're brain dead. The brain dead, they'll sit there, they'll drink their wit beer, and they'll sit in the microbrewery, and the music will have no theme to it. It will jump from Taylor Swift to Brian Adams, and that's fine. They'll be selfie points, like these men and women. They'll be like, they'll take pictures, and outside planes will fall out of the sky, and roads will sink into these spiral sinkholes, and there'll be general chaos and anarchy. But like when they go to the washroom of this microbrewery, out, like in that urinal just above that, there will be a sign like, don't miss your target, or something like that, like some inane, beer is the best, like you're looking at it while you're looking at it on the wall while you're peeing. So it'll be like that, and that I think is a beautiful vision for India 10 years from now. That as society is collapsing, you're sitting in a microbrewery, sipping your IPA, music is playing loud, and you go to the washroom. And if you're a dude, like you go to the washroom and there's a urinal and you're standing there, and like 3 inches from your face, there is a 60s American Coca-Cola ad type of aesthetic font somebody has written, beer is life, agree, or something like that. And that's it. That's the last thing you will see before everything else collapses. What a beautiful image. Bye bye. Right. If you like this episode, please consider following me on Patreon, where I do a second show, a small half an hour on the weekly news and things of that nature, the absurdities and the surreal stuff which is happening around. If you've had enough of me and if you don't want to listen to me that much, I completely understand. I can't tolerate myself. In that case, I would request you to go to buy me a coffee and please like support me, or you can just keep listening to my free shit. I don't mind. Thank you very much. Jai Bhim. See you all.